Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Also that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to Fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's Fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
You read murder mysteries?
Not very often.
Oh, me, I love them. I find them nice and relaxing. You know, the only trouble is that they got nothing to do with real life. I mean, the guy who did it. They catch him every time, and you and I know that doesn't always work out that way.
You never stop, do you?
What?
The insinuation, the change of pace. You're a bag of tricks, Columbo, right down to that prop cigar you use.
Oh, come on, Doc.
I'm going to tell you something about yourself. You say you need a psychiatrist. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you are the textbook example of compensation.
Of what, Doc?
Compensation. Adaptability. You're an intelligent man, Columbo, but you hide it. You pretend you're something you're not. Why? Because of your appearance. You think you cannot get by on looks or polish. So you turn a defect into a virtue. You take people by surprise. They underestimate you, and that's where you trip them up. Like coming here tonight.
Boy, you've got me pegged pretty good, Doctor. I'm gonna have to watch myself with you, because, well, you figure out people pretty good.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White, and joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Stachiw.
But like Columbo's wife, do I actually exist?
You might just be a face on a screen that I look at.
That's true. That's true. Through the magic of digital technology, I am here.
Thank you to everybody who stuck with us, even though in the first episode, we didn't talk about Columbo. We were talking more about Dostoevsky, but I think that we were laying down some good groundwork for talking about The Good Lieutenant.
I think so. And hey, we're going to be laying down even more groundwork, as they would say, because we're about to talk about not just prescription murder, but also Enough Rope.
Enough Rope, the 1960 episode of the Chevy Mystery Show TV anthology series, which was the first televised appearance of Lieutenant Columbo, kind of like how they had James Bond on TV way before they ever brought him to the big screen. Well, here it is, 1960, and we're going to have an episode of this mystery show that is hosted by the guy who I mostly know, Walter Slezak. I mostly know him from being the German from Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat. Were you familiar with this guy?
No, but I was more curious as to how many drinks deep he was while filming. Because, boy, it was a different time, right? Like, and this is this evening's episode. And it's like, whoa, bro, like, I can smell you from here, my friend.
What a cushy job.
Right? Smoke a cigar, drink, look in your, like, smoking jacket. I have no frame of reference for who he is, other than it was, like, hosted by Walter Slezak. And I was like, all right. And then he shows up a couple times, kind of Crypt Keeper style. And so I was like, all right, I'm on board. But he had a big enough personality that it was perfect for what he was doing.
We're going to give him enough rope.
Exactly. Yeah, and that is the thing. This does sound like a Tales, like the title sounds like a Tales from the Crypt episode. It really does. We call this one Enough Rope. Yeah. So is it enough rope because you've given yourself enough rope to hang yourself with? Is that where it comes from? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it must have been before this that Lincoln Levinson, the two writers who we will be talking about a lot throughout this entire podcast series, they wrote a story for one of the Alfred Hitchcock magazines called, I believe it ended up being called Corpus Delicti or I Corpus, something like that. I think it was Corpus Delicti. So I don't have Mark DeWitziat's book open right in front of me at the moment. And that eventually became Enough Rope, which eventually became Prescription Murder, but not the Prescription Murder that we saw on TV. It was a stage play, which was kind of a expansion of Enough Rope. And then eventually that became what we would see on TV as the kind of movie mystery of the week. It wasn't even a pilot for Columbo, and they actually have a second pilot, or what is a proper pilot after that. So Prescription Murder on television was 69, I believe, and the first pilot for Columbo was 72. So you're going to see a 3-year age difference in Peter Falk between this first thing that we saw and what we'll see next month.
Corrections. The story was called Dear Corpus Delicti, and Ransom for a Dead Man aired in 1971, not 1972.
This story is 8 years before we see Columbo, as Peter Falk Columbo. And even then, that version of Peter Falk, like you said, is 3 years removed. And boy, I'll tell you, as this being my first exposure to Columbo the character, the energy that Bert Freed brings is... I know where they were going with the character, and I'm glad that they went this direction at some point to kind of see if it worked, but it doesn't work. It would work if he was a villain, but this doesn't work when he's the protagonist of the story.
He would be a very good antagonist against Peter Lorre.
Right. Well, and I mean, I guess he is technically the antagonist of this story.
Kinda.
To the, I guess if you consider, Gene Barry's character, the psychiatrist, whatever he is in this version, the doctor character, he is the antagonist to the doctor, more so in this version of the show, because Bert Freed's energy is just, it's not wrong, but it's not where it ends up going that I think works better, is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, he's a heavy.
Peter Falk is not, surprisingly. Peter Falk is a diminutive little man, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, because Peter Falk would disarm you at how unassuming he looks, and he will get much more unassuming as the story goes on. But yeah, Bert Freed, pretty together. He's got that line about not being able to find a pencil, that his wife gives him a pencil every morning, but you don't get that kind of grasping for things, telling stories about the relatives all the time. I mean, there's a little bit of that. You catch hints here. When you couple this with where it ends up going, I think it makes more sense that this was kind of the genesis of the character, and I think they workshopped it clearly into something a little bit more interesting, because even with, if we take the character where he is out of the story itself isn't that great in this version. There's more emphasis put on how much his luggage weighs. Let's just put it that way. And that's kind of the main way that he gets caught in this version. The way the doctor gets caught is, his bag weighed less when he came back, so he must have been dumping her stuff, which obviously he is, but can't prove it until you find those things. And so that's kind of
the whole gist of this one. And the second one, they expound upon it a lot more because they're given essentially double the amount of time to do the movie episode, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the character of Columbo is in a very different spot here than I think anybody who would have seen this at the time would think he would go. Most people wouldn't think he would become what he ends up becoming, given the starting place either.
The availability of this episode of Enough Rope really helped push me over the edge to ask you to take part in this podcast, because I have listened to, I jokingly refer to this as yet another Columbo podcast. We're not the first ones to do this. There have been many other people. They've done a great job. We're not here to try to steal anybody's thunder. I've always wanted to talk about Columbo with other people. I actually talked about Columbo for 8 hours with a friend of mine on his podcast, but it's never come out. That was up in Toronto. Stuart Feedback Andrews, he and I talked about all of the Columbo episodes in a marathon session. I've always wanted to talk about Columbo, and when I finally found this episode of the Chevy Mystery Theater, that I think put me over the edge and said, great. Now I can see, because you know me, I love to look at the prequels, the sequels, the adaptations, everything. The screenplays. Yeah, I
go on your show, and I know that you are going to leave, as they say, no stone unturned. And that's the energy. I mean, that's some of the energy that you bring to everything else that we have ever worked on. And hey, I mean, again, this is the starting point. I mean, even more so than, Crime and Punishment, but I that's where the germ of the idea comes from. And obviously so. I mean, good God. I mean, Columbo, more so in this story than in the next one, really has that Inspector Porphyry energy. And as Bert Freed brings it, obviously. But man, I don't like his performance as Columbo, though.
I can grant you that. And I do feel a lot more sympathy for the doctor character in this one. And I think he's more sympathetic in this. Richard Carlson.
He's not as much of a smug bastard that Gene Barry is, because Gene Barry's pretty smug. And obviously in a very good way, but that's the way he's written takes a little bit of a turn. I think just Gene Barry has a little bit less sympathetic look to him. Richard Carlson has that little bit of a hangdog look sometimes. He can do the hangdog thing. Kind of William Sanderson-esque in a way.
He looks a little Mel Ferrer. He looks a little like some other character actors. He even looks at times a little Darren McGavin-esque at times.
He does. He's great in this. I think everybody, even Walter Slezak is great in this, no matter how many bourbons deep he was, or God knows what he was drinking. Because of the time limitations of it being, let's call it 55 minutes, the climax of the story takes a real hit. It wraps up way too quickly. You don't get to see Columbo really flex his lieutenant muscles, his kind of mental muscles, as much as in the other one. And you don't get to see all the fun stuff that Columbo gets to do either.
What did you think of not necessarily the actress, but the character of Claire Fleming, the wife?
What a specific kind of character. My wife was like, this character needs to die. She's beyond obnoxious. I mean, her portrayal in this is so grating that, again, you understand, like you said, the husband's a little bit more sympathetic here. The doctor is, because, what I don't understand is she a nagging bitch? Or is that just the way the character is that just the way the actress talks?
I think she's supposed to be a harpy.
Okay. Because she's not in the other one.
No.
At all.
She's much more sympathetic in the other one. Even though she looks more haggard in Prescription Murder than she does in this. She looks a little bit... She's not necessarily the young chippy that Susan Hudson is, but she is... Yeah, she's rough. She's very rough around the edges when it comes to this.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, because, again, I think all the characters kind of have a pretty distinctive change between this and then the Prescription Murder proper. I think my favorite thing was when when Columbo introduces himself as Dr. Columbo.
Dr. Fleming?
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Lieutenant Columbo, Doctor, police.
I don't understand.
Well, I think you better sit down. I have some bad news for you.
Something's happened to Claire.
No, I think it's interesting that the character does kind of take a more drastic turn here. Because, yeah, she is very she is unlikable and written in a very specific way to elicit a very specific reaction. Let's just put it that way. When you hear her shrill voice and her like, yeah, it's like you understand where he's coming from. Doesn't make it okay, but like you said, a little bit more sympathetic than this poor wife is just like, I know you fuck around on me. Like, would you stop? This wife is just like, I'm just obnoxious. Like, all right, got it.
The one thing I really appreciate about this version of the story is I think the character's name is Harry Walker, the friend who recognizes, quote unquote, the wife on the plane. I thought that was very nice that you get that little, she just passed me by in the hall and I called for her, but she was so mad that she left. And then Dr. Roy Fleming gets that nice little smile on his face, like, everything's going to be okay. This will work out well.
Did you make sure to ask her name so that you knew it was my wife? Like, thinking about this, it has all the parts that they do a better job with in the next one. And obviously, that's just the amount of time they're given. I mean, again, when you give them another half an hour, they do everything with it. They do a ton with it. I mean, you can see where they break the story out further into its more interesting direction. Because again, with enough rope, we still kind of get the same setup. The setup is almost the same, but it's the amount of attention that's given and the amount of time it's given to breathe in the next one that this one, just because time limitations, it doesn't have. You know, in this one, the wife is dead. Immediately she's dead. There's no, she's still alive. There's none of that. I mean, there's none of that. This is very straightforward. She's dead. He killed her. How is he going to get caught? What is it going to be? And it ends up being the luggage being too heavy, which they make a point talking about in the next one, but that's not the thing that pushes it in the next one. That's like the sole way that they solve it here. That and the woman has a big mouth, as they would say.
It was very interesting seeing the original commercials in this, and especially that the original commercials looked so rough and that they were all black and white, if memory serves, as opposed to the TV show, which in 1960 being color was a little unusual.
Yeah, the little intro bit from whoever at UCLA said they had 500,000 color TVs in the United States. That's it. Like, yeah, it was weird that this was in color because most people were seeing it in black and white. I do like the Crest commercial with Floristan. Floristan sounds like a country in the Middle East. Now with Floristan, ladies and gentlemen, I have something great to tell you. Crest whitening toothpaste helps with cavities. How do I know? Let's ask these children that we tested it on. Crest makes my teeth feel great. It's like, Jesus Christ. What was the other one? It's like, nothing solves your problems quicker than Pine Sol. Now with Sea Breeze Air Scent coming in the blue bottle as opposed to the green. I love those commercials. They're so, I was waiting for a fucking Brill Cream commercial.
Little dab will do ya. Little dab.
I have some Brill Cream in my hair right now. It's great stuff. But yeah, no, I was waiting for Brill Cream or something else. But man, it's so quaint, isn't it? Just so quaint. I miss the quaintness of it, Frank, in a lot of ways. Even though this takes place in the same decade as Prescription Murder, man, this feels quaint. This feels real quaint. Even compared to that, it feels quaint.
Yeah, Kennedy was still alive. Things are happening.
They're putting, Pine Sol on their floor and then starching their shirts, ladies and gentlemen. Send one label and this to Perma Starch so you can starch your husband's shirts in peace and quiet. Like, oh my Lord.
And the magic of live television where they're stumbling over their lines and every time they do, you're just like, oh, right. God.
Big thanks to everybody at UCLA and their archivist for archiving this because, it is the origin place of the Columbo character. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no... And everything else from the Chevy Mystery Show is garbage and nobody needs to watch it. Trial by Fury. And then I was like, I'll watch whatever the fuck that is. I'll watch that. It's funny because I guess for all intents and purposes, this was lost.
Yeah, no, I looked for this for years. I was just like, please let somebody release this. I think you could probably look at a copy in certain places, but yeah.
Maybe if you went to UCLA, they'll go seat you in a room, they'll wheel the cart in and they'll play it. And you can't take pictures, but you can take notes. I'm glad this exists. Is it rough? Sure, but as an interesting kind of genesis of the character, I think it's worth checking out. But again, it's a little hard to find. It's a little hard to come by, so I get it.
If it's still out on Vimeo, I will include a link in the show notes for this because that's where I ended up finding it, and hopefully it's still out there. And I think that we actually had COVID to thank for this. I think that this screening series that UCLA was doing was basically, hey, we're still here and we still have our archives and we're broadcasting stuff on Vimeo. And unfortunately, there isn't. They talk about a talk that's going to happen after. And unfortunately, that doesn't appear on the Vimeo link, on the Vimeo video. But, I actually, the person that was supposed to talk, the lady that was supposed to talk, I actually ended up tracking her down. And when her Columbo book is ready, we will have her on the show. She's already agreed to an interview.
I wanted to ask you because they mentioned it. So I was like, and this is recently. So we'll be bringing you the thing that you don't get to hear if you do end up watching this. So. But yeah, I think if you're a fan of Columbo and you've never seen this is worth checking out.
And interestingly enough, Bert Freed is the first person to play Columbo. And Peter Falk is not the second. He's actually the third or possibly even the fourth, because Thomas Mitchell ended up playing Columbo on stage along with Mercury Theater favorites Joseph Cotton and Agnes Moorehead as the husband and wife from Prescription Murder. Thomas Mitchell, most people will recognize him as being the incompetent Uncle Billy from It's a Wonderful Life, the one who loses that money. You old fool! How can you lose that money, you old fool?
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool? Where's that money? You realize what this means? It means bankruptcy and scandal and prison. That's what it means. One of us is going to jail. Well, it's not going to be me. And
then he ended up passing away, I believe, on the road. So he was replaced by an understudy. And so they still kept saying, like, Thomas Mitchell stars in this play. And then when you would come in, they'd say, like, and the part of Lieutenant Columbo tonight will be played by understudy so-and-so.
Wow.
From what I understand, Lincoln Levinson were not that happy with the play. They saw it. They were like, okay, it works okay, but the third act needs some work. And the director of the play was like, yeah, that's good. Why don't you guys take a hike? This works. We're going to keep on doing this, but it never became the hit that they wanted it to. And Lincoln Levinson were like, if we were able to change the third act, it probably would have worked a little bit better. And I think that's what we end up seeing in 1969 with Prescription Murder.
I agree. I mean, that, the third act of the Prescription Murder proper it's really good. It's really well thought out, unlike the third act of Enough Rope, because, again, just limitations of the medium.
It's kind of funny because I was looking on there's a Columbo site that I like a lot, and this is a horrible URL. It's columbo-site.freeuk.com.
You are not kidding.
Right? And they actually have a scan of, they've got photos of Agnes Moorehead and Joseph Cotton in their roles, and they have a scan of the front of the play. So there are people, probably not right now because live theater is a little tough to do, but there are people out there that are able to do Prescription Murder as a stage play. They scanned in the Samuel French Inc. stage, the play directions. So, which is funny because I can't remember if I was in it or if I just watched it, but our high school put on a Lincoln Levinson play, which was Murder by Natural Causes. I didn't know that I was having a brush with Lincoln Levinson all the way back in high school.
It feels like a stage play, this one does. Even though it's a movie, it still feels like a stage play, right?
It does. It does. It's very set bound. You feel very much like we open on this place. We have this party going on. They're playing, Botticelli. Basically that game that they're playing in Inglourious Bastards, where you're trying to guess who you are, or people are trying to guess who you are, I suppose it is.
Heads up, right? Isn't that what that essentially is? Like, get me to guess who I am.
But I think the doctor knows who he is, and he's just being a completely obscure, the guy who helped Freud write this book. I'm like, what? Come on.
Asshole from the jump. Gene Barry with a perfect head of hair. Always. So perfect. Such a perfect head of hair, this man. Oh, my Lord. Gene Barry just has a good look. He has a great look.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing, and he plays this character so well. And he was a Lincoln Levinson regular. He had been in, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what series he was in.
Burke's Law,
thank you.
Where he plays a misogynistic millionaire police captain. I think Father Malone brought that up or something about like how this character is very just misogynistic and not pleasant to be around. What a surprise.
Yes, but Dr. Ray Fleming here he's a piece of work, man. And I do really appreciate that his wife calls him on his bullshit and is just like, I asked you to stop having affairs. So there's a long history here. And her looks at him at this party with just like, oh, here he goes. He's back on his bullshit.
And that is the thing that I enjoy is that she's not the shrill harpy that she is in the other episode, or I guess the other version of this. She's just like, I'm so sick of your shit. I'm not even sure that I believe that she believes that they're at, like, I'm kind of shocked that she's like, yeah, we're going to Acapulco. Like, you don't find anything weird about this at all? Like, nothing at all. You just take him at face value? Like, she's written really smart until she's not.
So what did you think of the way that this mystery is set up? I'm very curious because rather than a whodunit, we know who did it from the very get-go. It is a how you catch them, I suppose is how they put it. Are you used to this type of style of showing the murder and then how the murderer gets undone?
Is this the way the show is from here on out?
There you go. Yes.
That is weird. So I knew why you were asking me the question, and my assumption was that you would ask me at some point on this show, because that is what makes Columbo, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I was not used to it, which should give anybody who's listening to the show an idea of my exposure to Columbo, which would be essentially zero. I think it's an interesting way of deconstructing the kind of crime story that they're going for. I think that's obviously what makes Lincoln Levinson so smart, is that it's not just telling the story, it's more showing us how he gets caught, because he's going to get caught. It's just a matter of how, and you don't know how. And I like that. It's like, I know why you like it. This is essentially the Jeopardy of crime shows. I mean, it's like the reverse. Like, I mean, yeah, isn't it? Yeah, like, here's the answer. Here's the answer, assholes. Like, just figure out the question. Yep. Yeah, that's what this show is, and I think that's. I'm not used to it, but I'm excited that's what it is, because I think it allows for a little bit more. It's not very Perry Mason. It's very much something else, which is, I think, a sign of the times that the show is on during, right?
Well, and don't forget about last month when we talked about Crime and Punishment. We got to see the murder.
Right. Using that as kind of source material, using that as kind of inspiration, it only makes sense that this is how you use it. This is the framing device. I don't know why more people don't do this, though. I don't get it. Like, is this like this isn't the only thing that does it, but I mean, look at something like Knives Out, right? Like, that movie doesn't do this, but it's like lauded as some great crime, whodunit. And it's like, I guess, but it's just a very much the same story you've seen a million times. Like this, it feels like when you do a story like this with this framing device, it gives you more opportunities to do something interesting with the characters committing the crimes, as opposed to just painting them very broadly as bad guys.
Well, and you're often given all of the same information that Columbo is given, and then it's just a matter of him seeing things that maybe you didn't see, or putting things together the way that you might not have put them together.
I like that. I'm all for it, and I think it's a lot more of an interesting direction to go than just a Perry Mason-esque whodunit. The good guy comes in. Columbo is almost the antagonist of every one of these stories, right? Which is interesting. It's an interesting way of telling that story. And I'm excited, frankly. So to answer your question in a very roundabout way, no, I was not aware this is what this is. I am glad that it is what it is now, and I'm excited to see what they do with it.
This one is a little unusual that Columbo is there at the scene of the crime before the killer comes back. And I like that. I like that when he comes in, that Columbo's there and that the outline of the body is there. And that is such the major thing, that he doesn't call out for his wife and that he just knows that she's already dead, and that immediately, who knows what Columbo's already been thinking when he's gone through this place, but already his spider sense is going off like, this isn't right. There's no fooling Columbo. He's there and he's got all these pieces and he's just putting those pieces together and making a compelling story.
And that's what I like about Columbo's storytelling in general, is he is a disarmer. And that's what I like that, because I think being someone who's able to disarm people is much more interesting than someone who's able to intimidate people. Because again, he's disarming people and he's just like, oh, let me just ask you another question. Like, oh, I need a pencil, or, oh, it's like, oh, but that doesn't matter, right? Or that doesn't mean anything, right? And it's like that question you're always asking, like, does it not mean anything? And that's what I liked about his character. But he does kind of just appear into the story like a fully formed. There's no Columbo's comes onto screen. He's just there. It's like fully formed out of another universe steps TV's, one of TV's most beloved detectives, as they like to put it. He just steps into frame and he's like, hey, where's your wife? You want to know where your wife is? Might want to take a seat. Like,
he's got a cigar in his mouth. He's ready.
Not looking very rumpled, though. Looking a little well put together here. I'm here for shabbiness. Where is the shabby? His hair is very... that's the thing. There is this kind of thing in this episode, and I'm curious where this goes. Columbo's a little mean.
I'm glad he picked up on that.
Is that a thing that will stick with him?
No. That he raises his voice, raises my hackles. Yeah, it is very unusual that
screaming at a woman.
Yeah.
Listen here, bitch. Like, that. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. What's funny is, again, I'm just going to say it now. Again, if this upsets someone, fine. He's being a bad cop. And I'm not saying like good cop, bad cop. I'm saying like he's actually being a bad police officer. Like, you don't get to talk to your fucking lawyer. Like, I'm not cool with this. Like, even though I know she did it, that doesn't matter. It rustles your jimmies. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, I hope this is not the character moving forward. It is not. Because it's very much like, I could see Bert Freed's character doing that, but not Peter Falk. And that's why I said, like, I was expecting a little bit more shabby. He ain't very shabby here. I joked that he, like, came onto screen as a fully formed character, but, like, in a lot of ways, he's not. Like, in a lot of ways, they're still working out the kinks. And I think that scene between him and Catherine Justice is really bad. And I don't like it. I think it's not good. It's not good. Doesn't make you like the character of Columbo, let's put it that way.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're trying to confuse me. I have nothing to do with this.
With what?
With the thing that you said about Ray.
Ray?
Dr. Fleming.
But you just called him Ray.
What difference does that make? I know him. He's my doctor.
Your lover?
My doctor.
And you said you never met his wife?
No, I never met his wife.
Would you like to see some pictures of her? I had them taken at the morgue. They're in my briefcase.
No.
Why should you? After all, you saw the real thing. That must have been quite a shock.
Why didn't you leave me alone? I didn't do anything.
No? What about these? What about the sunglasses? What about the overweight luggage? What about the argument on the plane?
I don't want to listen to any of this.
Now, you were there when he strangled her, weren't you?
No.
Well, does that mean that you came later?
I was never there at all.
I think you were. I think you probably changed into a dress while she was lying there, and then you and the doctor went to the airport and had that fake argument on the plane. Now, didn't you?
No.
Didn't you? Didn't you help plan it with him? Didn't you help carry it out with him? Now, didn't you?
Stop it!
Without you, that woman would be alive. Without you, she wouldn't be lying in the morgue.
It
couldn't have happened.
Stop it!
The one thing that does endear me to him a little bit, and this is a character we didn't really talk about in Enough Rope, even though I think he has a little bit more presence in Enough Rope as far as screen time, is that Ray Fleming, famous psychiatrist Ray Fleming, has a friend who is in the police department. I think he's the either assistant DA or the DA.
William Wyndham in this one. Which
is hilarious because we're going to be talking about William Wyndham tomorrow night when we talk about Now You See Him, Now You Don't.
They use that character as like a weird plot device where it's like, oh, we're going to use him to get you off the case, but they don't make a point of like really emphasizing it. It just kind of happens, I guess. And we're led to believe that he's the one who does it, I guess.
Right. And it happens off screen in this version. And Enough Rope, you actually get to see the DA character come in. It's like, what are you doing harassing this, upstanding citizen? And in this one, it's more implied when Columbo gets kicked off the case. And I do like where he's like, yeah, they tried to take me off this case. And then my supervisor said, or my captain said, no, something's hinky. You need to stick to this. And I'm like, that's nice. So, Lieutenant Columbo's captain is already looking out for him, even though I don't think we ever see the captain character ever.
Ever. As in never, ever.
We'll see some other members of the police, but I don't think we'll really ever see his direct supervisor.
I would say kind of like his wife, but we know that we will end up seeing Madame Columbo.
I'm about as interested in going that way as we are in exploring fish from the Barney Miller podcast. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting certain things of the character. I guess my expectations of Columbo are probably more season 2 of the character, less this. He wears the raincoat in like one scene. He's very well kempt. He's a little bit more abrasive than a guy who disarms people.
I will probably ask you at some point throughout these first few episodes, is Lieutenant Columbo the Lieutenant Columbo you were expecting? And definitely I know for sure the answer here is no.
For the most part, no. There are a couple just one more thing is there, which I know. And I know the borrowing of things to help disarm people is also there, to make yourself seem less put together. But again, like I was saying, where is the shabby detective? Because he's not shabby. He belongs on a show in a bullpen of other people, not on his own show. Does that make sense? He's a character, but he's not a character yet. He's still very much not narrowly, but more narrowly defined in a certain direction than what, the kind of bedraggled, not dragging himself through scenes, but doing it to get a certain reaction out of the people that he's with. In this, he's doing a specific thing. It's not what I was expecting.
There are glimmers. There are definitely little glimmers, like when he goes into Fleming's office and he starts talking about the couch.
I've never been in a psychiatrist's office before. First time. I keep looking for the couch.
So do my patients. I keep telling them it's bad for their posture.
Bad for the posture. That's very good. I'll tell you put me in a horizontal position, I'd fall asleep. Nice office, though. It seems restful. I guess it puts people in the mood to talk, huh? My sister, she has a living room. It's very, very modern. Well, the minute you sit down in it, you can't open your mouth. She's got this big kidney-shaped coffee table. It upsets me just to look at it. My husband, he doesn't say anything, and I figure the coffee table got to him years ago.
But that is very Columbo to talk about these missing relatives.
That's kind of what I was expecting, is that personal information, true or not, to help disarm the person you're talking to get their kind of confidence and maybe cause them to slip up and say something. And again, they don't really do it in this either, because they have that scene with Catherine Justice where you think she's going to do it. You think she's going to slip up, and it doesn't happen. And it's weird because in the other version of Enough Rope or Prescription Murder, which for the record, neither title is very good. Enough Rope is okay, but it sounds like an episode of Tales from the Crypt. Prescription Murder, this doesn't evoke that when I think of that kind of story.
Even though psychiatrists can prescribe drugs, that you tend to think of a medical doctor when it comes to prescriptions.
Right, and I think it was more just prescription murder, yeah, this guy's a psychiatrist. But again, that scene to me is very strange because, again, they have her doing that in Enough Rope where they're but they already found, loose lips sink ships shit. In this, they don't have that. They have a much more, I think, a nuanced approach. It feels a little cheap in this one. I don't know. How do you feel about the climax of this? It's a little interesting.
Because they already try a double cross with the Anthony James character. And I was so happy to see Anthony James show up as Tommy, the false confessor. Again, going back to what we had with Crime and Punishment. Instead of this guy being punished for making a false confession, here it's like, I like that Gene Barry sniffs out pretty quickly that this guy probably isn't even the real deal and calls Columbo on it. And I like that he calls Columbo out a couple times. That whole, like, you know, you pretend you're something you're not, so you turn a defect into a virtue. And he, like, knows the game that Columbo is playing, but he still ends up fucked.
Right. And so that's the question that I have for you, since you're someone who has seen Columbo and loves Columbo. And I'm curious, because I will be asking these kinds of questions, because I think it's, at least in this, there's some interpretation, but I guess in the show it's more or less confirmed. Did Columbo trot this guy out to confess?
That's what it feels like.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
is that
because
kind of what I'm in
those
for with the show then?
No, this is very much a different tactic. There's one very particular blind bluff that he makes that I can think of, but otherwise, this whole idea of trying to trick the guy.
This is a massive blind bluff.
Yeah, there's a couple like little tricks here and there that I can think of, but the 3 tricks that I can think of that immediately come to mind are probably some of the best episodes of Columbo's, and they're not these like, here's this false confession for us to try to trick you into stuff. And I think with this one, he's trying to get all of those details out. And that whole idea of Anthony James talking about the initials on the luggage, and then Gene Barry's already ahead of him saying like, you know, I would have told you that I don't have initials on my bag. And Columbo's like, oh yeah, I would ask you about that. That's good. All right, let's go ahead and take a really quick break here. And I had an opportunity a few years ago to speak with Anthony James, and I asked him about his role in Prescription Murder. What was it like working on Prescription Murder?
That was my first, role in television, aside from my 2 one-liners when I got my SAG card. That was even before In the Heat of the Night. But what was interesting about that is I come into the office to confess to a murder that I did not commit, and to Peter Falk and Gene Barry, who's standing against a wall behind me somewhere. And so the director says to me, well, he comes in, he's this guy who needs attention. He figures if he confesses to a murder, he'll have his picture in the paper, blah, blah, blah. I didn't say anything, but I thought, well, that's the most obvious. So what I conjured up for my motivation was that he was a terribly depressed young man who wanted to die and didn't really know how to do it. Was too scared to shoot himself in the head or take drugs or slash his wrists. But in his strange madness, he thought that if he confessed to a murder, they'd put him in an electric chair and he would die, and they would do it for him. So that's what I use. Now, the audience would never know this. But what that does is it changes the way your body language is elicited, the way you say your lines, and hopefully you say them and your pauses are in a much more interesting way, so it comes off as personality traits, even though the audience does not know that you have a very specific motivation that they will never know. It was very funny because after we shot the scene, Peter Falk leaned over and he said, now I can't do a Peter Falk, but he leaned over and he said, you don't want to do it the way the director told you. And I said, no. He said, yeah, it is a lot better. So cut to 20 years later almost at the Oscar party for Unforgiven, the only Hollywood party I've had ever gone to in almost 30 years, and I went out because Clint invited me, and I went out of respect for him. And so there I was at this Oscar party, and here comes Peter Falk with Tony Curtis, of all people. And so I didn't even remember, so I walked over and I said, oh, Mr. Falk, and before I could finish my sentence, he said, oh, yeah, you're the guy who confessed to a murder you didn't commit. So that's my Peter Falk story. He was great. He was great. I've been very lucky with the people that I work with because a lot of it has to do with what you bring as a person, as a personality. Anyone that I work with, from the people I had been warned about, like Richard Harris, or Oliver Reed, or people, or even Betty Davis, were warned about. You got to be careful. Richard Harris will hurt you in a fight scene. Blah 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 blah. Never had a problem because they got it right away. I wasn't there to upstage anyone. I wasn't up there to be a smart guy or a wise guy, or to be obsequious, or to chat somebody up, or say things that were glorious about them that obviously I didn't really feel. No, I was really there to do the best possible job I could do with the character I was given. And they got that right away. So I never had a problem.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
All right, we are back and we are talking about prescription murder, and let's carry on with the conversation, shall we?
I was less talking about specifically this scenario, but more like these are things Columbo is intentionally doing.
Yeah, in that duping at the end, that isn't necessarily, the whole idea of, your fake paramour body killed herself, and so now you get to talk about what a big man you are, because it is pretty, she didn't mean anything to me. She was just a piece of ass, and I've had the best pieces of ass. You can go back to New York and tell the Godfather. Oh, sorry.
None of your goombas. Keep all of your goombas off of here. Yeah, I knew where you were going. I read The Godfather in the last month, sir. Oh my God, yeah. Tell the rest of your Goomba Guinea friends to go back to New York where they came from.
I'm Dutch-Irish.
It is that same thing here where it's like you give the opportunity, you give the character an opportunity to incriminate themselves. And man, I hate these kinds of scenes though. I'm not saying that I don't like it. It's just, this is like a movie thing. This guy would not actually do that. He would not just be like, well, now that she's dead, I guess I can talk to you. Like,
I mean, and he doesn't say like, well, now that she's dead, I might as well admit to all this stuff. But it's basically like,
that's what Columbo says. He's like, now that she's dead, you might as well confess. And it's like, well, now that we're here, let me just let me just go to jail. That's the thing. It's like, for as smart as the character is being written, because the Gene Barry, the doctor character is written rather smart. I wish Columbo had undercut him in a smarter way. Because that decision he makes at the end of the episode, movie, what have you. What do we want to call these, movies or episodes? Because they're episodes, but they're like it's like an hour and a half long. This is a fucking movie.
Well, this one in particular is a movie. Next week we'll call it the pilot, and then after that we can call them episodes. But yeah, they are, 90 minutes to 2 hours.
For 90 minutes, this character makes almost no mistakes. And then at the end, he makes the biggest bonehead mistake possible. I hope that is not a continuing reoccurrence. Because, you can't be this smart and then be stupid just cuz. And I wasn't a huge fan of that.
I don't think you'll find the criminals stupid. They might be conceited, just like Dr. Fleming, but they're not going to be stupid. They occasionally make boneheaded moves, and there's an occasional making things worse.
But this is straight up I don't understand why you're doing this at the end. It makes zero sense. You have known she has been dead for a minute. One singular minute, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I would have made it look like an accident. It's like, wow, what the fuck? Jesus Christ, man. Come on. It didn't seem like Columbo baited him in enough to get that response out of him. Maybe this is nitpicking.
Did you notice, too, that Dr. Fleming did the exact same thing that Peter Lorre did, where he's like, well, let me describe the criminal to you.
Right.
And just describes himself. It's that whole well, if it was me, I would hide the loot under a rock.
What I could say is that our perpetrator is a smart man, or at least he thinks he's smart. But as a professional, that was the thing I like. Columbo's like, I do this all the time. I'm a professional. This is my job. So the criminal, he's not a professional. I like that little bit of like you said, insulting the guy to his face, but he can't respond like he's being insulted because then it would give it away. Yeah, it's stuff like that. I'm all here for it. That is just some well-written dialogue. And again, it really does completely hinge on Peter Falk's performance, which we never even talked about Peter Falk. My God. As someone who just saw him singing and dancing in Robin and the Seven Hoods, again, this is not what I was expecting from him as a character. I'll be honest with you. I don't even think of young Columbo when I think of Columbo. I think of Peter Falk as an old man, older than this, much older than this. This is 68, obviously. He was making Columbo episodes until late 90s, early 2000s? 2003, Columbo likes the nightlife. Yeah.
Okay. So for 4 decades, over.
When you think of Columbo, do you think of this view of Columbo? Not the character, the way he's written, but the look. Do you think of young? Okay.
No,
right.
No. Even once we get to next month, when we talk about Ransom for a Dead Man, that's going to be more the Columbo that you're used to, I think. Not fully, and definitely not old, but...
Right, obviously not old. But Peter Falk is one of those guys that kind of just he's like Abe Vigoda, right? He just kind of looks old. Not in a bad way, but he just looks like an older guy. His face and his look, I think, don't let his age. He's actually he's probably more like Burt Young, I think and there's a reason. There's a reason for that. Obviously, Burt Young would play him in Murder Can Hurt You, but Falk is born in 27. This comes out in 68, so he's 41. He's 41 when he gets the role that he's known for. It's all gravy from here.
And the role that he doesn't want. When they come back to him, they go, okay, we want to make a TV show out of this. He's like, no, I'm good. That's the thing. Between now and Ransom for a Dead Man, there's a lot of back and forth. And he doesn't want to be a TV person. He had been on a TV show, and he's like, no, I didn't like that. I don't want this grind 22 episodes a season. No, forget about that. So what they had to end up doing is when they came up with the TV wheel of all the different mysteries, then it was, once every 4 weeks. It wasn't once a week. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, now you're going from 22 episodes to like 8 episodes. It's like a little bit more doable. And you're going to see the number of episodes per season is going to shrink and not necessarily grow. It'll shrink down as we go along because he's a very reluctant and a very cantankerous star.
One could say like we're like Dante and Virgil looking into the kind of the 10 circles of Columbo. It's exciting to know that like Peter Falk, similarly to Darren McGavin, very idiosyncratic, very specific kind of person, the kind of person who appreciates things done their way or the way that they see fit. And yeah, I don't blame Peter Falk, especially, I mean, look, like, okay, we have another podcast, Barney Miller. The show's like 30 fucking episodes. When we talked to Otto about it, it sounded like it was a nightmare. They're working until 3 a.m. They're doing a million takes. Like, do you blame Peter Falk? Not one iota, given the way TV was being made in the 60s. And obviously, this show changes the way TV can be made in a lot of ways, because at the time, is anybody doing an hour-and-a-half long show anyways like this? At least consistently with 1 star? Probably not.
There might have been, but I can't think of anything, especially once they get to that wheel programming. I mean, that was pretty revolutionary for the time to be like, okay, it's Columbo, it's McMillan a wife, it's Banachek, it's Heck Ramsey, or, other McLeod, which is, I think Levinson and Link also had a hand in that. So yeah, it gets very interesting very quickly.
Yeah. And I'm excited because, again, if Peter Falk is like, I don't want to work on a show essentially like Barney Miller or like a lot of the other shows at the time that are just 30 episode throws, if that forces the writers at the time to do something that writers at the time aren't doing, which is crafting a hour-and-a-half narrative as opposed to a 30-minute one. So I'm excited, very excited, because it feels like a movie. That's why I was like, should we call these movies or episodes? Because like an hour-and-a-half is not an episode. That's a movie. Like that's a singular narrative that's told, and it starts and it stops. But that's because they give it an hour-and-a-half. They don't need more than that. I'm excited.
Just for being completist, because I like to be that way, I also wanted to quickly bring up that this was not the last time that Prescription Murder / Enough Rope would be adapted. It was actually adapted for French television, Columbo Meurtre sous Prescription. And that had the actor Martin Lamotte as Lieutenant Columbo. And that's really interesting because it's a throwback because it's a live stage performance that is captured for television. So it is basically going back to Enough Rope and this new adaptation of it. It's very strange because, you can hear the audience. You can hear the creaking of their shoes on the floorboard really loud, which is strange.
Sure.
But it was a neat way of approaching it. They had some good looking sets. And, obviously I don't speak French, as you can tell by my pronunciation of the title, but it was interesting that they approached it this way and that they did this TV special. I mean, we will talk as we go along as far as the international appeal of Columbo. There's a Japanese version of Columbo, which I have been desperately trying to find, subtitled or not, but they had a character in the trench coat with the hair, with the cigar, probably not the cigar. That would be a little out of character, but yeah, it was something that I'll be looking for. But yeah, he was, he's just like Tom Waits. He's big in Japan, big every place.
I heard he's big in Budapest even.
Oh, yeah. Got the statue of Budapest. And then, one thing that I want to cover as this series goes on, I want to talk about Wings of Desire, where Peter Falk is kind of Columbo in that. Everybody recognizes him as Columbo, but he's basically playing a version of himself, which is just an amazing film.
I've never even heard of it.
Oh, it's great. You are in for a treat, my friend.
So he's playing Columbo?
He's playing Peter Falk, but it's hilarious because he's in Germany, and whenever people see him, they're just like, "Oh, Columbo, Columbo."
That's amazing.
It's great.
Look, I like Peter Falk, so any extra Peter Falk stuff, I'm not going to be like, no, please, no.
Yeah, I think we should probably even look at the one that he made with Elaine May, because he ended up not working on the show for a little bit because he wanted to do that. I think he ended up financing it with Columbo money. So he had that. We'll talk more about his work ethic and about his friendship with John Cassavetes and Gazzara and Gina Rollins and all these guys as we go along too, because that plays a crucial part in this Columbo narrative.
Well, and again, when you have a guy who's seemingly as idiosyncratic as Peter Falk, talking about his other stuff probably is not a bad idea. He's bringing very specific energy to everything he works on, seemingly. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, this is a good starting place. So was the last episode. We're still kind of like building up. This is still, we're like, I guess the next episode is the first episode proper, I guess.
It's the pilot.
Yeah,
You're doing
but so
the
was
pilot.
this. So was this, technically. What is this considered in the Columbo community? What do you consider this? The first episode?
I consider this the first pilot, even though, like I said, it's 3 years between this and Ransom. It's odd. And when I was younger, when I was working at Blockbuster, you could, and you know, if Blockbuster still existed, you could go out and rent this as an individual movie. And, you know, you can see on the IMDb the picture.
Poster's pretty great.
Yeah, that very stylized picture of Gene Barry and Peter Falk. That is what was on the video cover. Right there available for you. That kind of ugly yellow that they had.
The ugly yellow. I don't know. I like what Columbo looks like, though.
I like that. Gene Barry looks more like George Hamilton in that picture to me, though.
He kind of does. He kind of does.
I used to get it mixed up because there's a George Hamilton episode, and I believe he plays some sort of psychiatrist. So I was like, oh, this is the one with George Hamilton. And Barry looks good, but he doesn't have that body, and those legs are a little thin.
Gene Barry is, you know, Burke's Law. Burke's Law would end up coming back in, like, the late 80s, doing essentially the Columbo thing. Right? Like having him come back as kind of like the grizzled older man come into... Did they do that with Perry Mason too? Was Ironsides one of those as well?
Ironsides was more of a straight remake, if memory serves. That was it Blair Underwood, I think, might have played Ironsides? And
But Raymond Burr never came back as Ironsides in the 80s is what I'm asking.
Oh boy, if I swore to that, I would be lying.
Right, it feels like you might have. Burke's Law came back. Columbo came back. Gene Barry ends up benefiting the same Peter Falk does. This is post Burke's Law. So this is post Burke's Law that he's in Columbo too. So it's very interesting. It's just kind of a weird kind of just like they both ended up doing the same thing and they're in this together. So just interesting.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the name of the show that Peter Falk was in where he, again, I think he played a district attorney, and that's the show that he was just like, yeah, no. And I think that show, Trials of O'Brien, that's what it was. That only lasted one season. So he also felt pretty burned by that.
Sure.
And yeah, that was 22 episodes from 65 to 66. And that was right around the time he was in things like The Great Race. I think it was Billy Wilder directed that one. Do you remember the old TV show? I think it was, it might be way too young for you, but is The Wacky Racers?
Yes.
Sorry, it was Blake Edwards. It wasn't.
You're talking about like Snidely Whiplash?
Kind of, yeah. Like, but
dog,
he's
the laughing dog.
Yes, thank you. There you go. Yeah. Basically, he's kind of playing that dog character is what, you know, because they took a lot from The Great Race and put it into The Wacky Races. So he's basically the dog, and Jack Lemmon. That's why I thought it was Billy Wilder, because Jack Lemmon and him worked a ton together, but it was Blake Edwards. But Jack Lemmon plays that Snidely Whiplash type of character.
Interesting. And no, Raymond Burr does not ever come back as Ironsides. That's just him doing, you know, whatever, like 30 Perry Mason movies or whatever. Again, guy from this time doing this show, coming back in the 80s.
Including a lot of Perry Masons that he wasn't even in. I think Sorvino might have played, like, he wasn't Perry Mason, but I think he might have been like filling in for him a few
Paul
times.
Sorvino?
Yeah.
Oh, Paul. Oh, you were saying Paulie from like Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Gotta turn my back. Now I gotta turn my back on you.
Sorry, we're getting way off track here. We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, so what are we talking about on the next episode, Mike?
So on the next episode, Chris, we are going to be talking about the proper pilot. We're going to be talking about Ransom for a Dead Man.
We always we've pretended to start this show essentially 3 times.
Yes.
This is the 3rd time. I promise we're starting the show this time.
It's just like when we talked about Barney Miller,
Right, exactly. Yeah, but Barney Miller didn't have like 4 episodes ahead of the first one. It was just 1, right?
Just that one pilot, and then the second pilot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is so I'm on board with Columbo. If this is kind of the starting place, it can only get better from here because this was pretty good. Both of these were pretty good.
I want to thank John Walker for doing our opening theme and Colin Gallagher for doing our closing theme. I want to thank everybody for listening to The Shabby Detective. Thank you so much. I think we had all of 60 downloads for that first episode. It's only going to get bigger and better from here, folks. So just stick with us. If you listen to us on any sort of podcasting platform, go on out there, leave us a review, give us a thumbs up, whatever that kind of positive rating is. We'd love to hear from you if you've got your own thoughts about Columbo, and I'm sure we'll hear from people on the Columbo Facebook groups because they love talking about Columbo, and they love talking about who's going to be in that reboot that will never happen.
Well, it might happen. Just hopefully not in our lifetime.